allegiance to the flag of the United
Flag
States
of the United States of America
and to the
and
republic
to the republic
stands
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. All right. Hope everybody's doing great. Got
Yep.
enough groceries. I sent out the minutes last week. Anybody have any changes to the minutes? I couldn't figure out who was doing motioning and seconding and all this other stuff. So if everything looked okay,
You look
I'd
fine to me.
take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
And who was that? Was that Peter?
Yes.
Peter,
Yeah.
for a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, for Lauren, I heard her first. Lauren N. Great.
I think I should abstain since I wasn't there.
And Jean abstains. Okay. Thank you. And Lauren, any public, did anybody else coming into Zoom?
You have no one else on the meeting right now.
Okay. I guess there was a meeting in Wallingford where somebody zoomed in with some bad things. Pretty funny, I guess. I had a friend of mine who's on that board on the P&Z in Wallingford. So it was pretty funny. Okay, old business. I sent everybody the PowerPoint that Lauren graciously updated from, if I do this, if I make this smaller, everything's still cool, right? Yeah. And if I bring up that PowerPoint version 3,
Mhm.
move this over. Did everybody get a chance to look at that? We could look at it now if you want. It's the one that we had. It was pretty much ready to go before the flu thing hit. And we were about a week out for our first public forum. So, Lauren, nothing really changed in this, other than you did some date changes, obviously, and some communications with the committee. I think you updated that, I think. But really nothing changed from when we reviewed this the last time. So I think we're a go here, unless anybody has anything to add or edit or change or add. So feel free.
Question, this is the presentation for the public
Yes,
session?
yes.
Okay.
Which is,
Because I found it, I looked at it, I found it going from slide 4 to slide 5 when it talks about the chief executive officer. So slide 4 is pretty simple. It delineates 4 types of government.
Yep.
But then it talks about as chief executive officer. I don't think each one of those executive office CEOs goes to every single form of government, so it could be confusing. It's also
Okay.
very
okay, this is right out of the
yeah, I
stat.
know, which makes it, that's probably why it's confusing.
Yeah,
It's out of a government document.
it's probably not written that well to start with. Yeah, I took this right out of chapter 99 there. Okay, I could take a look at that again. Chief Executive Officer. Okay, I'll take a look at that, Bob, and see if I can. I'd hate to change anything only because it's the statute, you know?
Yeah, but if it's to solicit input from anyone who might attend, we're sending it out beforehand, it's dense.
Yeah, it's not written, so it's not written.
I think once before we had like simple
Another-
definitions of the 4 types of government, one of which had 2 types of CEOs. So there's 5 types. And that was really easy to understand and might get people lining up better.
Okay,
I couldn't find it though.
okay, all right, I'll take a look at that. And let's see.
May just be simpler, if it's tabulated.
Yeah,
just put in the,
break it
and
down.
then you could always have the references to the statute in an appendix. If
Yeah.
people care to look, but
Okay. Page 5, tab 8, and appendix. That's a good idea. Statute. Okay,
or even footnote the
Yeah.
the statute.
right. Right. Okay. I'm just hoping we get some interest, I was unsure of the interest before the pandemic, and I'm unsure of the interest after the pandemic because there's so much other things that we need to be, people are worried about, obviously,
Mhm.
I keep getting surprised as I look at the stats of the increase in positive hits in Madison. It's just, I just don't understand it, so. Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else have anything at all on the,
So on the third slide, I mean, just for clarity,
Yep.
with the first sub bullet, it says CEOs of Wallingford, Guilford, Cheshire, North Branford, Clinton, Fairfield. The person that we met with in Fairfield was the town clerk, so not technically the CEO. I mean, it's a little bit nitpicky, but maybe just representatives or government officials of Wallingford, et cetera, would be more
okay,
accurate.
okay. Okay, good. Yeah. Yep, and we still haven't gotten to anybody else yet. Branford, Glastonbury. And I was scheduled to meet with the Board of Finance chair, but she had taken sick, so we missed that, and then
Yeah.
pandemic hit, so. Okay, anything else before we move on at all?
Well, I mean, I guess the question I have is, Bob, what is the purpose of this? So we have the public hearing, but are we asking them to respond to this document or what?
No, it's just, I guess that we started this out with the theory that, it was just kind of an update for the public on what we had done year to date and
Okay.
what we were looking at. So it gives some perspective to the person. Maybe the average person doesn't understand the forms of government that are available or that are allowed in Connecticut. And it gives them some idea of what the statute is, what we're doing, and what we've done. So that was really it. It was,
Okay, so, and if nobody shows them for the public hearing, this is a 10-minute meeting.
well, yeah, that's true. Yeah. It took me 10 minutes to get on, so it's probably 20 minutes. But yeah, you're right. It's probably a really quick meeting. And I'm hoping that when it hits the town's website, that maybe it interests some people to come on out and jump on. I don't know if people are a little reticent to jump on a Zoom with strangers. I don't know.
Lauren, do you know how have the other boards and commissions meetings been in regard to public attendance?
So in general, it's been low, but that's because we're not letting a lot of boards and commissions meet right now. We've asked most of them to cancel their meetings, but the Board of Finance had a public hearing last Wednesday night, and we had a total of 78 people on that meeting.
Wow.
About a third of that was public. A little more than a third of that was public. A third was staff, and a third was elected officials from all three boards. So we've had a lot, I would say a decent amount of public participation at the public hearing and at the last Board of Selectmen meetings, the last two. The public is definitely comfortable. The public that is signing on is definitely comfortable. he'll kill me that I'm going to say this, but Gus Horvath has been coming on these meetings. So I feel like if Gus can figure out how to attend a Zoom meeting,
That just gave me a boost of confidence.
yeah.
He's not here tonight.
That's great. That's great. Well, maybe this is another, maybe because of this, this is another avenue to get more people participating in town government. You know, if they don't have to leave their home and they can just jump on the family's PC, that's great.
Yeah,
That's-
we're actually considering if this platform will be used after the pandemic response,
why-
if we'll
you know, why-
continue.
yeah, why wouldn't it? You know, if it's,
Yeah,
Yeah, if nothing else for the public to join.
yeah, it's cheap enough, that's for sure. Actually,
know-
I don't know. I don't know how much this is. I know it's free for 40 minutes.
it's not free at
It's
all
cheap.
to do the webinar platform. You have to have a license, but it's not a significant
Yeah.
financial
I
impact.
didn't think so.
You know, when we had planning and zoning 2 weeks ago for the new marina, which is probably one of the more controversial things that's come up in a while, we had about 12 people attend that.
And if you didn't have Zoom and if it was a regular meeting, what would it have been, do you think?
Oh, you know, it's interesting. It was probably more attended, maybe the second or third. This was like the fourth continuance, so it took forever to get there. And I think by the time the whole thing got ground into a different project than when it started. And so as we got to the fourth one, it was actually going to be a point where people were pretty supportive, which it was 9-0 in favor.
Yeah, I read that.
But on the Board of Finance one, there was 78 people, but that was also when they were setting the mill levy too, or not the mill levy, but talking about the budget for this year. So that one would be unusually well attended, I would have thought.
Okay. Great. Okay, well, I'll make some of those changes and review it, get it back out to you guys. Next thing on the agenda is discuss forms of government, town and city interviews that we had. And I had 6 of them. Gene, would we go on 3 together? We did Guilford together
Guilford, Cheshire,
and
and
North Branford,
Clinton.
and 4 together then. North Branford too, right?
Oh, and North Branford, yeah.
Yeah. So Gene, and Gene. Yep. And through this whole process, this has been kind of doing these interviews has been kind of fun. I also met with the chair of the Board of Ed, the superintendent, and now we need a new superintendent, and the chairman of P&Z. And those are the kinds of things we can talk about with the Board of Selectmen when we meet about what we've done. But and Leo, you met with the town of Fairfield with Helen, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that you did only one. You had another one planned for Greenwich, and that never happened, right?
Yeah, Helen was trying to see if she could arrange that,
Right.
but it didn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got hit. So if you want to chat about what we went on, I mean, in Guilford, we met with the first selectman, Matt Hoey, real good guy. I mean, all of these people were so helpful in the amount of time that they gave us. They were really very liberal with their time. I really appreciated it. I learned a lot about the different forms of government. But and Gene, chime in anytime. But with Matt, they have the Board of Selectmen town meeting form of government. So they don't have a town manager. So it's like us. They are so similar to us that the only thing that's really different is their Board of Selectmen have 4-year terms, where we have 2-year terms. And Matt was saying how, and he's been prior to him being first selectman, he was on the Board of Finance for 26 years. Now, that's astounding that someone can be on a committee for 26 years. He thought it was wonderful. He thought he was absolutely prepared to being first selectman because all the time on the Board of Finance. I would completely agree with him on that. But he definitely recommended to Gene and I that, looking at my notes here, sorry, I'm not looking at you, that we consider 4-year terms for our folks. Our Board of Selectmen now have 4-year terms, as I understand it.
2 years for selectmen.
Board of
Finance
Finance
has
has
4.
4 years, right? Yeah, yeah. They had a change in their charter. They did look at the RTM form. He didn't recommend that. Really likes the town meeting format. He advised us to go talk to Glastonbury because they just installed a town manager. Let's see, Gina, yeah.
I think the one theme that we heard in talking to the 4 towns in regard to terms is that, 4 years is much better than 2. I mean, 2 years is disruptive, can be disruptive. You have a big learning curve. Obviously, in some of the boards and commissions, they can stagger them. So it's not, every 2 years there's an election, but it's not the whole board. I think with the Board of Selectmen, it would be different. I mean, I think you wouldn't stagger. I don't know, but I don't think you'd stagger them. I think you would, it would just be one election every 4 years. But there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said for that.
The disruption factor to me is important. Not disruption with the town, but disruption with the town employees at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those towns that had made the change had really were very much in favor of the increase in the term from the 2 years to the 4 years. So, I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
something we need to.
It's funny, after a year, you're almost running again.
Exactly,
Well,
exactly.
and then the second half of the second year, you got the learning curve in the transition in the first 3 to 6 months of the first year.
Right.
And then the disruption, the whole political process and all the politics that's involved in the election in the second half of the second year. So you really have a little over a year to really kind of have a cohesive board. I mean, I know that and it was 20 years ago, but the Charter Review Commission that I sat on, we did talk about that. And my memory is a little bit short on this, but I know that it didn't really get any traction. But
Okay. And Gene, I wrote down notes here that you thought that our managers, our town managers were excellent, and that they were very much in favor, or not in favor of, but they were very assistive to the Board of Finance from the management perspective. And that's in relation to the town manager, where you might not need a town manager if you have strong managers at the town level.
right.
That was kind of Fillmore's point too, I think.
That was, I thought that was a good point that I wrote it down, so.
Right. I think that's key. I mean, that's key. If you've got good, strong department managers, it's not as critical.
Right, it certainly helps.
Yeah. Wasn't that, as I recall, wasn't that Fillmore's point when we interviewed him, is that we had
It was
really
his point.
strong leadership,
Yeah.
and so therefore you didn't need to
Right,
rock the boat, so to speak?
And then,
exactly.
of course, Gus, and again, Gus goes back, I don't even know how many years ago he was first selectman. I was probably in kindergarten, but
I think it's longer.
no. But, his point was that, again, many, many years ago, the town didn't have the luxury of having a really strong department managers. I mean, things have evolved. So,
Right.
That's certainly something that, we can, I think Madison does well because we do have, very strong management.
And Guilford has a population of 22,000, so they're a little bigger than us
Yeah.
from that perspective. And then I went to see the mayor of Wallingford. And the only reason I chose Wallingford, and this goes back to February 19th, so this is a long time ago, was because they had a mayoral form of government, and they have a council as well. And Mayor Dickinson has been mayor since 1984. So I was a sophomore in college. That's how long that goes. And he appreciated hearing that. And he was very, very helpful. He really pushed the mayoral form, which is not surprising. He made it very apparent that when you have a mayoral form of government, you absolutely know who's in charge and you know who's accountable. That's debatable, I guess.
Is
And
that,
they're
is
on
that a strong mayor? Was that a strong mayor or?
I think it's a strong mayor.
Okay.
And he's on 2-year terms, so he's done 19 of them. And I said, well, when are you done? And he said, well, as long as I'm healthy and I can still be effective, I'm going to keep going. So he absolutely looked great and was completely, at ease with what he's doing. They have a population of 45,000. It's considered a city. They had a Burgesses form of government up until 1961, which is kind of a representative town government. So he was very frank with me, and he wanted to know what the problem was in Madison. And I said, "There's no problem in Madison. We're just reviewing different options." It's like, "Well, why are you doing this?" And so I kind of had to talk through that. And he talks about the quality of the people. He thought that anything other than a form of mayoral government was less accountability. The Board of Selectmen is a representative. And I asked in all of the interviews I went on, I asked all of them, how would you suggest getting our voters to be more participative? And no one really had a good answer. That's like the holy grail right there. He didn't think it was a sign of failure that there was a lack of participation. But he does understand that a very small minority of people vote, and that's very unfortunate. Unless it's for, obviously for a presidential term. But to get somebody out for a referendum for a new budget is pretty low. He was asking me a lot of questions too, and I didn't have a lot of the answers. Will a new form of government solve that issue of participation or anything else we're trying to solve here? And he also liked when I talked about the town manager form of government, he thought that was he thought that he was the town manager per se. He's been doing it for so long. He knows every nook and cranny in the town hall, in City Hall there. So that was a good interview. He challenged me. I challenged him a little bit. I think we met for about 2 hours. None of these meetings were short by any stretch. And again, as I mentioned, they were very willing and giving of their time. And then Jean and I, on March 4th, my wife's birthday, remember that? We met with Sean Kimball. They have a town manager. This is Cheshire, population of 29,000. They have a town manager, no board of finance. And remember, Gene, he had that budget book. It was like that thick. Every line he knew. That guy was really good. He came from Simsbury. Always he was very strong on his capital plan. He had been there. I think this is.
He's been the finance director, I think, in Simsbury.
Yeah, I think yeah. So that was really strong.
So he had a very strong finance background.
That's very important, very helpful. And he's been in Cheshire since 2017. I think he's in his second 2-year contract. He liked the town manager form of government, obviously. consistency, decrease in politics, stability, growth of the town, helpful in the growth of the town. All departments report to him, including all HR issues. They have 9 members on their council. He's actually, and how this worked is, this is different than I've ever seen it. Whoever gets the most votes is the mayor. But it's still a town, it's still a council. But it's kind of honorary, you know, cutting ribbons and kissing babies and things like that. So, you know, one thing I forgot to ask Guilford is, do they have an ethics commission? And in Cheshire, they don't. And they don't have town meetings. So it's definitely a different, and I grew up in Cheshire, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it. Also, I knew that they had a town manager, so I thought that that would be a good candidate. So, you know, if I had only met with one town and it was this town, I would be very supportive of a town manager for its efficiency and consistency. And again, this is one that we could debate. Will it really decrease politics? He seems to think so. I've not seen that in Cheshire because I still get the Cheshire Herald because my mom still lives in town, and I kind of watch out for the issues for her. And I see a fair amount of politics, probably more than I've ever seen in 10 or 15 years that's happening in town now. And that could be just by personality. I don't know. But they just had a council member at large quit. He was getting, I guess he was getting, there was some stuff on social media that they went after his family. He didn't appreciate that, so he quit. And, well, you know, our system, we've been doing it since about 1826. Most of you on this call right now know this all better than I do. So we won't have to go into Madison at all. And that was the superintendent. The town of Clinton, Carl Kilduff, Gene and I met with him on March 9th. The town manager form of government, he believes it's the right way to go because there's less turnover, he thinks. He thinks it's a better long-term strategy for the town. They have a town council and a town manager, 4-year terms. And Gene, to your point, they stagger them. What was the impetus? Now, they just changed to a town manager. And the impetus was stability and professionalism. And in this instance, the highest vote getter on the council is the chair. The spark, I asked him, what was the spark of changing the charter? And I can't read my writing.
I think
He
they
thought
couldn't
that-
get budgets approved, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's true too. They had, I don't know how many in a row that failed.
Yeah.
It was
Town
five-
employees were very, very supportive of the change, he thinks. They have a director of finance, 10-year capital plan. He thought the civic engagement was very good. And it increased participation, which makes sense because when you go through, I don't know how many budgets that they couldn't get passed, there was a lot of people participating. And so
It'll be
that was
kind of
Clinton.
interesting to watch that, watch how that goes, because that's a big change for the
Yeah.
town of Clinton.
Yes. And it's been a very short time.
And he's experienced. He's got
Yeah.
good, strong experience in not just in Connecticut, but also in, I think in Pennsylvania. So he's been around the block a few times, so.
I Googled all their backgrounds before I met with them, so I'd get a little perspective of who I was talking to. And he was a pretty impressive guy. So was the Cheshire town manager. He was pretty impressive. And then we also, Gene and I met with North Branford. Mike Paulus, he's the town manager. They have a town manager, town council form of government, 2-year terms, nine council members. And all the other towns, the town managers had contracts. This is very unusual where this town manager does not have a contract.
Is this Brantford you're talking about, Bob?
North Branford.
North Branford.
North Brantford.
Yeah, yeah. A reason I picked North Branford was I knew that they had a town manager system, and I had lived in town for a while before I moved to Madison about 26 years ago. And I thought that I thought the town was very well run. Their budgets were great, and there were no conflicts, and the politics was very low. The political strife was very low. No, so he doesn't have a contract. 9 people on the council. 6 is the max for any one party. No board of finance. He develops the budget and he sends them to the council for approval. Capital plan goes to the council as well. He's been there since April of 2013, so he's been there quite a while. He liked the town manager concept because, again, it has consistency with all department heads and town employees. He has a director of finance. HR falls to him as well. And I didn't ask this in any other town, but he does have 4 unions to contend with. I didn't write down who they were, but he does have a fair amount of time dealing with that. So Guilford, Wallingford, Cheshire, Clinton, North Branford, and we know about Madison. So those are all the towns I met with, or Gene and I met with. And then when I met with, just to give you a little perspective, I met with Katie Stein on the 5th, and she would like to see, these are my notes when I spoke with her. She would like to see a longer term for Board of Selectmen, good for the town employees, more stability, transition period for selectmen. She was in favor of a town manager. I asked her how I don't know why it came up, but I asked her how we get more unaffiliated people involved in the participation of the town, and how we get overall more electorate involved. And no one has these answers really. So that was a really good meeting. And this is pre superintendent announcing that he was going to be leaving. Also met with Ron Clark. He's the chairman of the P&Z. Really good guy. He was very helpful. Really wanted to have his opinion heard. He was the only thing he was worried about with the town manager role was finding a good experienced person. I asked each of these town managers how difficult it would be to find an experienced person to come to any town, and he said that it's difficult to find good people like that. He thought that a town manager would act like a chief operating officer. I don't disagree. And he even quoted to me, it takes 75 people in our town to have a quorum at a town meeting. He thought that was too much, as I recollect. So that he was very helpful too. And then my last meeting was with where is he? Superintendent. And he would love to see a town. This is Tom, and obviously he's leaving at the end of the year. But his opinion was he'd love to have a counterpart in the town at town hall. He thought there might be too much churn and lacked stability, and it was too political. And he'd love to have some executive leadership in the town hall. So that was March 2nd. So whatever that was worth. We didn't spend a lot of time together, but I could tell he was rushed. I don't know if he had something else going on, but he was helpful. So those are the forms, those are the interviews that I conducted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Leo, can you, do you have notes to chat about when you met with Fairfield?
I'll have to go by memory. Helen took the notes, and I don't have copies of what she had. So we should probably reach out to her and see if she can send them along.
I did reach out and haven't heard back yet, but I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
Yeah, that's okay. But you know, our Fairfield has RTM, so representative town meeting. It's what I recall is it's been that for a very, very long time. I think at least to the 60s, if not before. It seems to function very, very well for the town. They have 10 districts, if I remember correctly, with currently 4 representatives from each district, so 40 representatives. I think by the charter, they can be in the 50s, and I think what the clerk had said was that they have varied the amount of representatives, but again, it's always been that form. They've had very, very good turnouts for being members of the representative body, and then also just participation generally in their election processes, aside from presidential elections. And I'm trying to remember what she had said, but they had won some type of award for some ridiculously high voter turnout. So it seems that the population is involved, at least with turning out, and then also they're involved with being members of the representative class. Those were, I think, the really high points. It didn't seem that, you know, again, we did ask, you know, what is it that doesn't work or whatnot, and there's nothing substantive that sticks out to me in my memory. Again, it just seemed to work pretty well for Fairfield. So they have a 3-member board of selectmen, if I remember correctly, and then the RTM with the 40 members.
What's their population?
And they're around 60,000, I think.
It's considered a city too.
And yeah, and they have, and they also have an ethics commission. That was one of the things I think I remember accurately.
You know, with this pandemic, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but I was just going to say, I think those are the high points from that. Nothing very controversial. Seemed to work for them.
Yeah. You know, with a pandemic or any kind of emergency, hurricane, you know, anything that has put Madison in, you know, the crosshairs of bad things, seems like a town manager would be so much more appropriate at, you know, a person who's in charge, you know. So Peggy's elected in November. By January, she's in the middle of this crisis. And take Peggy out of it. Any person who took on this role, even if Tom had stayed in and gotten reelected, what regular person, what regular citizen can deal with this at the town level? You know, I think a town manager, you know, has, you know, so much, you know, it's a full-time job. This is what they do. You know, many of the town managers we talked to kept referring us back to, what's that association, the Connecticut Town Manager Association or something like that, you know.
You're talking about CCM, the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities?
Yeah. You know, they've got all the resources. They know all these, they've all got these contacts all over the state. It seems like a town manager form of government would be much more, I don't know, protective, efficient in the wake of a serious, you know, serious scenario like we're in right now. You know, Peggy was a finance person, right? I think her background is finance. You know, let's say that you know, any one of you guys were first selectmen. You know, we all have varying degrees of experience, but a town manager, you know, I think would be more, you know, I'll just throw that out there. So I was just impressed with all the town managers that we did see. Other than the North Branford guy, Gene, he was kind of the weakest that we saw. He was kind of a,
little bit of a bureaucrat.
yeah, exactly. I thought Sean Kimball and Cheshire had some leadership qualities, some personality, as did the town manager in Clinton. He possessed some real leadership skills too. What a beautiful town hall, by the way. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. We can continue to discuss the different forms, and we're certainly not over debating, you know, what we are going to recommend. That's for sure. If any changes, we're going to recommend to the Board of Selectmen when we're done with our product.
I think meeting with the Board of Selectmen is going to be very important.
Yeah.
Are we scheduled to, I know we are scheduled to have a group update at one of the meetings. I think
Right.
it's gotten pushed off, right, Lauren, because of the,
Did we confirm that, Lauren, with the schedule?
Yeah, as of right now, as long as nothing changes, you will be on the Board of Selectmen agenda for May 26th, which is a Tuesday,
The 26th, right after Memorial
after
Day.
Memorial Day.
Right. Okay. Board of Selectmen. Okay, that's confirmed. Great. Thank you.
and I you know, and the only former first selectman we met with was Phil Moore, who really, you know, feels, you know, supports the current form of government 100%. He's feels very strongly about it. I don't know. I thought we were going to try to
Yeah.
meet with some of the other former.
We did. We you know, pre-pandemic, yeah, we were going to talk to as many who wanted to talk to us.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many want to talk to us.
Yeah.
Did he say why he was so positive about the current form of government?
Well, he served 3 terms, and I think he just felt that, given the current, you know, the management, the paid department managers,
Right.
call them department managers, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That it really worked very, very well. He felt that he didn't feel, you know, and he also, you know, referred back to former first selectmen and the people that, you know, served in that position, their management experience. Granted, it was not municipal management, but it was, you know, high-level managers from in other fields. And a number of them also had served on other boards of commissions. A lot of, you know, whether it be Board of Ed or Board of Finance, those are probably the big, you know, the big 3, the selectmen or whatever. So they'd had some government experience. So he just, you know, just really felt when we brought up town manager, he said, I think it's working, you know, why fix something that isn't broken? I think was sort of his.
Yeah, I'm looking at his notes. And yeah, he clearly felt that we have really good managers in
Yeah.
town, you know,
Yeah.
Stacy, Dave Anderson. And this is my own editorial comment, but I think we draw from a better talent pool in Madison. We tend to better educated. And so I think we tend to get more people that were qualified to be in government.
Yep. Although
And
the one thing that he did say, when we brought up the terms, the 2 versus 4, I think he said, yeah, he goes, I could see 4 years.
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
wrote down, he said 4 years too long.
Oh, he did?
Yeah,
Really?
that's what I wrote.
Oh, I must have, okay.
I thought Gene, I kind of remember what you thought too.
Yeah.
You know, didn't he say something like, to Peter's point, you know, we can get them out quicker if you get a bad apple? Didn't he, something like that?
I had thought, I thought, you know what, I thought that maybe his initial reaction was 4 years is too long, but then as we talked through it,
Okay.
I think he might have said, well, I guess there's an argument for making 4 years. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I
definitely.
didn't take notes.
I just looked at my notes and I have a note in here with it says 4 versus 2-year terms. And it says he Fillmore might have not decided to run if it had been a 4-year term. That's what I have.
Yeah, that's right. He
But
did say
I
that.
think that was only because he was kind of getting a little up there at the end of his last term, maybe. Maybe he thought he was maybe too old. I don't know. Maybe too old for that.
He was just wanted to do something else.
Yeah, yeah. Lauren, should we ask more former first selectmen if they'd like to talk with us? We did once already.
Yeah, I'll reach back out to them. I know part of the reason why Tom Banish wasn't able to get to you guys is because at the time he was working in Hartford. There was really no way for him to get down to a meeting at 6 p.m. But now that everything is remote and he's also not going to Hartford because the state is closed, he should hopefully have some more time, and that could easily be just like a conference call with 1 or 2 of you.
Sure.
So I will reach back out to him, and I know Tom Scarpati was also interested in helping, and I,
Oh, good.
go ahead.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Would they like to Zoom with us or just conference calls, you think?
I will reach out to them both and ask. So when we had first set up these potential interviews, I had sent you guys just the list of the prior first selectmen. So this would take you all the way back through Gus. So it was Gus and then Scarpati and then Fillmore and then Banish and now Peggy. So it takes me back about 30-ish years with all of these ones. And I mean, I can go back and I can ask a couple of the people from the late 80s, early 90s that don't live in town anymore, but I haven't been able to get in touch with them. So
How big was the town then?
I'm
How
sorry,
many
what?
how many people lived in Madison back in the 80s and 90s?
I have no idea. I would have to look that up for you.
All right, don't worry about it.
Gene was in town.
Weren't you too?
No, no, well,
80s and 90s? No?
well, yeah, I got here in 94.
Oh, okay.
Did you go, didn't you grow up in town?
Yep.
Did you-
Yep.
So you went to Hand High and everything?
Yep.
No kidding. Wow.
I don't know. I know that probably the biggest boom when all the subdivisions started going in, even north of, even between, say, the Pines and north of 80, I don't want to say the population doubled during that period of time, but there was a significant growth.
Okay.
There was a lot of building, but it'd have to go back historically.
Okay, no, that's the boom. All right.
But I mean, the form of government, the type of government, the population grew. I mean, not like doubled or anything, but the population grew, but the form of government has remained stable.
Right. Yeah. I'm just always surprised at the lack of participation, only because of the level of education that people have in this town. And I always make that assimilation towards education equals, participating.
But Bob, I've said the same thing. I said when I was in the 80s, say the mid 80s through the mid 90s, I mean, I was commuting, both Mark and I were, commuted to our jobs. We weren't involved, I mean, we felt,
No idea this part of trying.
we felt, we felt that that the town was well managed, and unless there was some major issue, which I don't really think that there were many back then. I mean, we just, so I think it's typical, and I think what we heard is typical. I don't,
Right.
You would like to see more people come out for budget referendum, since that's what.
Yeah.
But
But do you think most people know that they're essentially the legislative branch of the government?
Mhm.
That things don't get passed unless someone comes out to vote? You need a quorum, because I didn't know that until I joined this committee. It's the typical government is you elect an official and they represent you.
Yeah.
and they do all the heavy lifting and thinking and do the right thing. And if you don't like it, you vote for someone new next time around. So I'm not even
That's
sure
your
people know.
choice. That's your choice. If you don't like what, if you don't like who's in, vote them out. I mean, that's kind of,
And I've spoken to some people around here. It's like, did you know if you show up with a quorum, you can pretty much vote anything yes or no. And like, really? So I don't think there's
We don't know.
you don't get a hand, when you buy a house in Madison, you don't get a cheat sheet on how the government works. And so
Or
there's no
anywhere.
one knows they should come to vote.
Right? Yeah, or anywhere.
Yeah.
I
So
get my
I
wife,
might be part of it.
I get my wife to vote. Her uncle was killed at the Kasserine Pass in North Africa in World War II. And I'll get up and I go to work at, I'm leaving the house at 6:30 in the morning, and I get up and my wife I'll say, honey, I'll see you at Brown when we go to vote. She says, no, I'm not going to vote. I got to go to school. I said, honey, your uncle got killed. It's for your right. Next thing you know, she's right behind me in the car. So I guilt her right into it. So the next thing on the, and we'll talk more about the forms of government too. So we have to, there's no way around it. The next thing on the agenda was discuss questionnaires for our public and town employee comments. And I cannot find my notes for that, for the question part of it. Helen was going to take a crack at it, and I haven't heard back from her, so I'll zing her again on her notes. So I have your emails. Each one of you emailed me some couple of comments here and there way back in late February and March. So I think we kind of have to revisit this when we have a little more ammunition behind us. And Lauren, I think you have some.
I had taken all of those separate emails and kind of made one document with some draft questions. And I can't remember if I sent it to the whole board, Bob, or just you and Helen, because I think she was going to work on it.
Yeah.
But my notes that I have are that she emailed us back and said that she was going to make some revisions. So I went and emailed her last week and asked if she had had a chance. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel if she already had made some of those revisions. And I didn't hear anything back. So
Yeah, I didn't either. I sent her a nice personal note of, thanks for all you've done so far, and understand why you have to leave. So maybe give her a couple of more days maybe, and zap her again before the weekend or something. Yeah, I was kind of counting on her for that, because it seemed like she had a little passion for that. So
Is it
But-
is
but
it
we're-
possible to get a copy of the, because we at the March 9th meeting, yeah, I think that's where we had that initial draft. Like, it's like when we kind of discussed parts of that, like there was that whole first page on the current government, and I have some of my notes that are on that, like some of the questions. I have some notes on just some comments that people had made regarding the wording of those. So if there's, even if we don't get Helen's notes, if we have that document that we discussed on March 9th, I'd be happy to take the notes that I took at our meeting and put those into that, if that would be helpful. But
okay. Lauren, can you resend out what you sent to us on the questions? And then, what we'll do is we'll pick it up. We'll pick it up again next week. And then we'll try to button it all down for next week, actually, because time is ticking for us.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something that we can do during the week as well, as far as looking at it, reviewing it, and then maybe doing a little bit by email. I've got some time coming up because the PPP loan program's over, so I got a little more. Gene, you are so lucky not to be in banking anymore. You
they
wouldn't.
sucked you back in, huh?
You wouldn't believe the chaos. And Peter, I don't know if you had anything to do with PPP, but
No, but I'm the lead liaison on the Main Street for the investment bank.
Oh.
So I'm getting killed.
you and I should talk. Yeah, I can see myself getting tasked with something like that. So we should talk at some point. Okay. All right. So we'll hit questions hard during the week. We'll talk about it next week as well. We'll continue to talk about the forms of government. We need a little more kind of and we'll get it from the first selectman, a little more kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, we'll get a little more, you know, maybe some information or some opinion from that, from our current first selectman. We'll again try to talk to our old first selectman. And Lauren, anybody who you think also might, you know, have some strong opinions on it. And Jean, with your background on as a select person, if there's anybody you think, you know, we should talk to, you know, just, you know, a guy like Gus, you know, there's not many people like Gus, but, you know, there's certainly some people out there with probably some strong opinions on, and maybe there's not, maybe this is going to be a surprise to a lot of people that we're even talking about this stuff.
Well, maybe if we talk to our existing, not just the former first selectman, but our existing board of selectmen.
Yeah.
I mean, Al Goldberg, well, he kind of gave us a pretty good feeling of what his opinion is, but we've really not sat down to talk to him as Al Goldberg as a selectman. I mean, he was first selectman. He's been on the board for what, 6 or 7 terms or something like that.
Is that long?
So, and Bruce is, you know, Bruce is in his 3rd term. Aaron's new, which will be kind of good because, you know, it would be, so I think we, you know, and again, we're not talking about long, you know, 15, 20 minute conversation, I think, for people who are currently living it.
Right.
So I will float that idea to them. I know that part of the reason why they've been very hands-off is because of the perception of this committee. They really want this to be an outside objective opinion and not one that can be perceived as being swayed by the current board. But I don't see why they can't just tell you what they think works and doesn't work and not really give you an opinion on which form of government that they would support,
Right.
but just what, you know, the current pros and cons.
Sure.
The other thing is, I know we're going to do a questionnaire for staff, but I don't know if you want me to give this information in senior staff this week, that staff who have, you know, very informed opinion can send you guys maybe a written statement or
Sure.
their list of pros and cons if you'd like something from them.
Lauren, I think that if we ever said no to somebody who wants to give an opinion, we wouldn't be doing our jobs. You know, absolutely, be happy to. Yeah.
You know, I think I don't want to throw the public under the bus. That's not, but we're talking about the lack of participation. The people that I think could give us the best input are the people that have been there, lived it and done it. You know, I mean, we're talking about former select people, anybody from boards and commissions, people that, you know, obviously staff is really, really important. The average Joe on the street has said that, Bob, that could be you, could have been you, could have been me 20 years ago. Like, we don't know. I mean, so
To Bob's
as I said,
point,
I think you need to talk to the public, but I think where we're really going to get the most value is talking to people that have served in some capacity. That's just, again, my opinion. And I think, Lauren, to your point, I understand the position that they're in, but to sort of be able to just give a, you know, a short, here's what I think works well, here's what I think doesn't work well, without saying, hey there, Maddie, without them saying, I'm a strong proponent of this or that. So.
no, I completely agree. Completely agree. Good. And Lauren, we need your opinion too. So whenever you want to let us know what you think, Lauren R., whatever you think, you know,
Sure.
you know, so. Okay. All right. So we'll work on questionnaire. We'll work on different forms. We'll get some more opinions. We'll work on a PowerPoint and we're good to go. Great. Oh, I like these Zoom meetings. Peter, you had to leave at 7 anyway. Peter, did you say
He's
something?
got to unmute.
Oh, I've got to go. Sorry.
Yeah. Good. Well, anything
Thank
else
you.
for the good of the order before Peter bails? All
Nope.
good? All right, folks, thank you very much. I really
night.
think this is working out well.
Yep.
I love the back and forth. Thank you for everybody participating. And I'll get the minutes out ASAP in the agenda and we'll go from there.
Cool.
All right, I got
Excellent.
7:04. Thank you, everybody. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night. Stay
Take
safe.
care.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren, especially Lauren. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.